A very good morning, everyone. So we are again here with our another lecture on transactional analysis, that is for positive attributes at your workplace. So now we have a very talented, a very brilliant guest, Dr. Shivali Sharma. She is assistant professor at Amity University, and she has many research papers in very good journals. She is conducting. She is the member of many association and member in many recognized boards, like member of Police Recruitment Board. She is the external examiner at Aligarh Muslim University. She is also evaluator at IGNU, and she is also a reviewer at Psychological Studies. That is very great. And she is she is conducting training sessions in many different organizations as well as academic institutions such as Aligarh Muslim University, Banaras Hindu University, and Awadh Girls Degree College. And she has also conducted behavioral trainings for executives at Bhel, Jagdishpur. So she is she's having 18 years of experience in teaching, counseling, and training. So Dr. Shivali Verma, I welcome you on this stage, and today we are going to have our another lecture on value added course. Now it's over to you, ma'am, Dr. Shivali Sharma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farah. Very kind of you. I'm humbled by your introduction and not such a great person. Just trying to learn and trying to grow every day. And that is what keeps me going. And this is another good opportunity. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interact with the new crowd. But aren't my audience visible to me in this? I have never been through StreamYard before. So how can I interact with my
Audience
audience?
will message you on the chat box. Can you see the chat box?
Okay. Yeah, I can see
Okay.
the chat box. So
They will be
they are not
messaging.
visible to me.
No.
Okay. But that is another limitation of, taking online workshops.
Yes.
I would have preferred an offline workshop, probably, inshallah, next time. Whenever
Yeah,
we meet
sure, ma'am.
offline.
Sure. Yeah. That
So,
would be a great session.
yeah, of course, when you interact with people in flesh and blood, it is obviously very different. So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can see their reactions, you can, take their viewpoints regarding what feedback they want to give. It is you that keeps the person going. But
Yes.
see, whatever we can do, whatever little bit I can do on this online platform, I'll try to do it. So when I was invited for the lecture, I was just thinking, how can I make it something different, and how can I make it different? Just talking about who am I, and just talking about the self esteem, and how to analyze yourself in different terms. So there might be some different way of knowing yourself and knowing how you interact with people and how your interactions with others are going to affect your life forever. So this is one theory which is very close to my heart, which I find extremely pragmatic whenever you are, interacting with others. And this is something which you can do at any levels. So let us not be the slave of the past. If you talk about Freud, if you talk about uh, this psychoanalysis, and you talk about these theories, they make us a slave of the past. The best part of transactional analysis is that they truly believe that we are a product of our history. But again, they have this humanistic viewpoint that things can be changed the moment you want to take charge of your life. So let us not become the slaves of our past, and let us try to understand that what you want to be and what you want to do for the rest of your lives when you move out of the cocoon, when you move out of that shadow of your parents who have made you what you are today. But when you become an adult and when you want to take charge of your life, how you can change your life, and how can you achieve uh, excellence personally as well as professionally. So let me change the slide. So when we move to the next slide, see, now here the interaction begins. I was actually taking workshops on Teams and other Zoom, and we I could interact with the audience. So actually, I want to know that, do we actually know ourselves? Or whenever we want to ask this question, and whenever I ask my students, tell me something about yourself. This is the first question when what we are asked whenever we are moving out, whenever we are joining a college, whenever we are going for a job. This is the first question people ask. Tell us something about yourself. What do you think? This telling something about yourself is to do with your name and your age and your gender? No, absolutely not. They know, the moment you enter the boardroom, the moment you enter the interview room, they know these details from your CV. So what do they want to actually know? They want to know about you as a person, about your uniqueness as a person. And through, there are some people who, uh, go to their graves without even knowing a bit about their potentials. So can the students, those students who are hearing me, I would like to ask this question, that do you actually know yourself? And I would like to ask you, take 2 minutes or 3 minutes to answer in the chat, that if I give you one word to describe yourself, what would that word be? One word. You can take 2 minutes. See, I would request you to please answer. Just one word. Close your eyes and think of yourself. One good way of, realizing what you want to be, what you are actually, you can think of, writing your own obituary sometimes. What do you want people to talk about once you die? What do you want to be called? Do you want to be called as somebody who had a lot of material possessions, or do you want to be called as somebody who was a masiha, or somebody who helped others, who was a very loving and caring person? What would you like to be called? No response?
Ma'am, can you see the messages in the comment box?
No, nobody has actually responded yet.
No, ma'am. Students are responding, ma'am. Check in the left side of the comment box. Can you see the comment box?
You are in the show. Chat with everyone in the comments. Okay. Okay. Good morning. Okay. Mama has said he wants to be called resilient. Reshma is daring, brave, achiever. Very good. Now, what this achievement has to be? Arijita, what achievement? Having a Mercedes? See, for those who are unable to describe themselves in a word, there are three more questions which we cannot take up right now because we have time limitations. Please note down these questions, and if you actually want to make the most of this workshop, try to find out three things about yourself. What do you cry about? See, this is not crying about. What hurts you the most? What do you sing about? Or what makes you happy? And what do you dream about? Dreaming about yourself is your ideal self. What do you cry about? Whatever I want to achieve in terms of academics and material things. Okay. See, what makes me cry? What makes me cry is, the situation we are living in. The divides between people on the basis of anything. So if I want to be, if I would like to describe myself, I would like to be known as somebody, who spreads peace, who spreads love. What makes me happy is, the love between people, the world peace. So if you want to know yourself, what makes me happy when I see people, uh, interacting with each other, building bridges amongst themselves. So I know myself. I know that I want this world to be a better place. Good morning, Aditi. Yes. And what do I dream about? I dream about a world which is a better place, which is a safer place for all of us. So this is my dream. So you actually know yourself as a person when you think of these things. These might be very, this might appear something very philosophical. What do you cry about? What do you sing about? And what do you dream about? So this is nothing philosophical. This is something which will give you an idea of yourself as a person. So whenever we are talking about yourself, whenever we are talking about ourselves, we are talking about the self concept, we talk about the self esteem, and we talk about the ideal self. अगर आप रॉजर्स की बात करें, yes, Sayed, you want to be known as Sayed Ibrahim. You want to achieve this that everybody knows. So we have different ways of describing ourselves, we have different self concepts. So whenever we are talking about the who am I in our lives, we are talking about the self concept. But the moment you talk about how am I, this becomes your self esteem. For example, I am a female is my self concept, but I am a caring female. I am a loving person. Now, this is my self esteem because I'm talking about how am I and what would I like to be is the part of my ideal self. There is a lot more to achieve to reach my ideal. For example, Mother Teresa is my ideal. If you talk about me, if I talk about what I dream about, I want to be known as somebody who was loving and caring and who spread peace and love amongst the young people, the younger generation. So there is a lot more to achieve before I reach that platform. So there is a lot, many things I would like to achieve before I die. And this is what I want to be. So, what keeps you going is your ideal self. Otherwise, we would all stagnate wherever we are. The moment we realize that, okay, I am one all, the all, then there is no going further. So these are the questions I would like you to, write down, and I would like you to know yourself rather than I'm a learning and kind person. Very nice, Aditi. A person who wants to learn throughout life and who wants to be kind to others around. That's the best way to live. Be generous, be kind, be giving. This is another way of achieving satisfaction in life. So, whenever you talk about transactional analysis, let me move to transactional analysis first and then I'll come back here. Have you ever, how many of you have read something about transactional analysis? Anybody in the audience? Are you all psychology students? I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just asking whether you have heard this term before. Anybody who knows about transactional analysis? So, okay. I assume that nobody knows. No, ma'am. It is okay, absolutely. You are just in the beginning of, you will know the basics of transactional analysis today, and there will be something which you will be taking. So, this is a theory, this is a psychological theory, and it is now widely used in the organizations to improve the communication between people, to improve your own patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. What is life? Life is all about A, B, and C. Your, attitude, your behavior, and your cognitions. So, whenever you are talking about any theory, you are talking about CBT. Again, it is talking about your cognitions and how your cognitions affect your thought, your emotions, and your behavior. So, how these three things are linked? Most of the theories are talking about ABC in different ways. Now, there is another model, this is called the TEA model, that is thoughts, emotions, and actions. So, whenever we are talking about thoughts, we are talking about emotions, we are talking about actions. Whenever we are talking about cognitions, we are talking about behavior and your emotions. So, anything you talk about comes to these three things, that is, how you think, how you feel, and ultimately how you behave. And the focus of Eric Berne, he gave this psychological theory in 1950s, and he talked about why we think, act, and feel the way we do. Now, he took most of his theory from, when we move ahead. How many of you have heard about Freud, and how many of you know about um, the psychoanalytic theory? If you are psychology students, you are psychology students, right? Have you read about Freud? See, again, I'm not going to ask any questions and you are not bound to answer, but I would like to know how much you know before I speak further. Yes. So I believe that most of us have, the first thing we study in psychology is studying about psychoanalysis and studying about Papa Freud. right? So when we talk about Freud, the first thing which comes to our mind is the id, ego, and the superego. So Eric Berne has taken his theory from the psychoanalytic viewpoint. You'll draw a parallel when we talk about the ego states in transactional analysis, which are very similar to id, ego, and superego. So why are we studying about transactional analysis? We are studying about transactional analysis is because this is something which has started from psychoanalytic viewpoint but has grown much ahead of psychoanalysis. And they talk about humanistic approach in the way that we can take charge of our lives, and definitely we can change our lives the way we want to, and we are not the slaves of the past. Now whenever you talk about psychoanalysis, Freud believed that the the psychoanalyst is one step ahead higher than the client. But whenever you talk about the humanistic approach, the best part of humanistic approach is that the client and the therapist are on the same platform. और इस वाली थ्योरी में जब आप ट्रांजैक्शनल एनालिसिस की बात करते हैं, तो transactional analysis is a theory which you can apply in your lives yourself. अभी जब मैं आपसे बात करूंगी तो आप देखेंगे कि कैसे हम ट्रांजैक्शनल एनालिसिस को अपनी लाइफ में बिना किसी की मदद के यूज कर सकते हैं, खुद को जानने के लिए, पहचानने के लिए और बदलने के लिए. सो दिस इज समथिंग वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. But for something to reach you, the best way is to be receptive while the person is speaking. अगर आप इसको एक बोझ की तरह लेंगे तो आप कभी नहीं अंडरस्टैंड कर पाएंगे. अब हम बात करते हैं वाई. यस उमामा, you've raised your hand, or you are okay, you want to ask something? I'm waiting for your question. So I move ahead. I think there is some misunderstanding. Uh, so, whenever we are talking about communication, you know that communication is the basis of all personal and professional relationships. And the way we communicate with people speaks a lot about ourselves. This is something which is very well known to us. Nothing is new in this. So, transactional analysis, it's a psychological theory. It is being used to help people to, there is a therapy based on transactional analysis. Then, this theory is also used for improving communication uh, within us, improving communication, uh, the intrapersonal communication as well as your interpersonal communication. And today, because transactional analysis is a huge theory, it's not limited to 3 concepts, but today we'll be talking about two basic things, that is the ego states and the life positions. There is there are lot many things we can talk about, but because we have a limited time, these two things, these two concepts, you can apply to your lives from today, just after we uh, you know get over with this workshop. You'll be able to understand what I was speaking. So we talk about two things, that is the ego states, and then we talk about the life positions. So TA claims that we can better understand ourselves by analyzing our interactions with people close to us, right? So before I move to interpersonal communication or communication through transactional analysis, in 2 minutes I'll get over with the process of communication. What is communication? So there are two types of communication. There are impersonal communication and there are interpersonal communication when you are talking about the organizational communication. But when you talk about personal communication, it is interpersonal communication. That is the communication which you have with others. And then you have intrapersonal communication, the communication which you have within yourself. So, what is impersonal communication? When you talk about impersonal communication, now what am I doing? Is this impersonal? No, this is not impersonal communication. What is going in the chat might be considered as impersonal communication, but whatever I'm speaking right now is not impersonal, right? Because uh, sorry, I'm just speaking the opposite. Impersonal communication is something which I am doing right now. Interpersonal communication is when you are giving me the feedback in the chat box. That is interpersonal communication. So now here it is one way information giving process, and I am transmitting or transferring the information to you, and I'm talking about transactional analysis. But whenever you are you know working in a company or you are the manager, then you are sending policies, or you are giving memos or letters to the employees. You are using impersonal communication. So whenever you are talking about impersonal communication, we do not talk about impersonal communication in TA. We are talking more about the interpersonal communication. Now impersonal communication में तो आपको दूसरे व्यक्ति का रिस्पॉन्स मैटर नहीं करता, और आप वो उसको समझ में आया या नहीं आया, इससे आपको कोई वास्ता नहीं. बट जब आप इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन की बात करते हैं, तो आप टू वे कम्युनिकेशन की बात करते हैं. आई एम टॉकिंग टू यू, I'm exchanging my thoughts, I'm talking to you, but uh, I am also bothered about what are you understanding, or what are we are discussing. We can, even if it was an offline workshop, then we could have argued and we could have discussed and we could have um talked more about what would be more fruitful. बट जब हम इंटरपर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन यहाँ पे कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि immediately I cannot see you, I cannot see your faces, I cannot see your body language, it becomes a limitation. It becomes a limitation. Why? Because it feels that I'm talking to somebody, I'm talking to my own self, hearing my own voice, and it is not that fruitful whenever you are taking a workshop in a um, online mode. So whenever we are talking about interpersonal communication, I'm not talking about this workshop anymore. I'm talking about you. Whenever you are talking to somebody, what do? You are a sender, you are sending a message to a receiver. And what do you expect? You expect the feedback from the receiver, whether the person has understood you the way you want it to be understood. And that is the basic purpose of communication. So the message is sent from the sender, goes to the receiver gives the feedback, and then the sender realizes whether the person has understood the way you wanted him to understand. Now, I come to transactional analysis and we talk about what is a transaction. Now, this good morning, ma'am, and it is already 11:33 a.m. is something which is a transaction between me and my students. So, any exchange of thoughts, ideas, and feelings is called a transaction. An interaction that occurs between two or more persons. And now, this the emphasis of transactional analysis is what? The emphasis is mainly on positive interaction. So, if your interactions with others are positive, you are actually a very successful person. अगर आप कहते हैं ना कि जिस when in Rome, do what Romans do. So, you have to understand what the people in your company want from you. What, if you talk about personal relationships, it can be your spouse, it can be your friends, it can be your girlfriend, boyfriend, anybody. So, whenever you are interacting with somebody positively, it will have a very positive impact on your relationships. You are successful as a person, you are successful as a professional if you know how to interact with others positively. Now, how do you understand that you are interacting with others positively? For that, you need to discover your ego state. So, when you talk about transactional analysis, this theory is based on two notions, that we have three sides or three ego states to our personality. Now, this is the parent, adult, and child. And this parent, adult, and child is not anywhere else. All these three ego states are within us, and these ego states converse with one another, and they converse internally also, and they converse externally with other people. A human may think, feel, and behave in one of the following ego states. Now, there is a parallel between these ego states and the Freudian, mm, you know, id, ego, and superego. Now, can anybody, if you are talking about the parent, adult, child model, you can understand how what parent would be. Will it be id or will it be superego? Parent is something which we have taken from our parents. Parent is the voices of your parents within you. So we have three ego states. These three ego states, most of the time one is very dominating. If you talk about me, right from the beginning, even when I was a child, it is, yes, the superego is your parent. Why? Because parents have always been telling us to do the right thing. So the voice of the parents, when you are behaving like a parent. When you are with your friends, when I was small, also when I was a little girl, my sister used to say, you are my choti mom. Why? Because I always acted in a way which was very caring and very protective about people around you, my students. Most of the time, my colleagues, they always talk about me as somebody who's a parent. Why a parent? And see, we have two types of parent. First is the critical parent, and the another is the nurturing parent. So whenever you are behaving in a way, and these voices are dominant when you have a parent style of functioning with you. When we are small, the way we have been treated by our parents, if we were treated in a very caring way, if we were treated in a very nurturing way, we were encouraged to self recognize ourselves, then we behave in a nurturing parent mode. But there might be people who speak like parents. Yes, Umama, it helps you in deciding. See, I am telling you right now that my dominant ego state is the parent ego state, right? When I talk about adult and child, then it can help you. You can look at your traits, you can look at the way you think, feel, and behave, and you can decide कि आप कौन सी ईगो स्टेट से ज्यादा फंक्शन करती हैं, राइट? तो अगर आपने बहुत क्रिटिसिज्म बचपन में झेला है, there are some parents who are very critical, so you might have a manager, you might have a teacher who is always in the parent mode, but often very critical of you कि तुम्हें तो ये भी नहीं आता, तुम्हें तो वो भी नहीं आता. और जब आपकी शादी होती है तो आपको कई बार इन लॉज मिलते हैं जो ज्यादातर क्रिटिकल पेरेंट मोड में होते हैं. तो इट इज एब्सोल्युटली ओके फॉर पीपल टू बी क्रिटिकल पेरेंट्स, और what is more preferred, that you stay in a nurturing parent mode whenever you are interacting in your personal life. Then you talk about the child ego state. Now, what is the child ego state? It has nothing to do with your biological age. घर का सबसे छोटा बच्चा ज्यादातर चाइल्ड ईगो स्टेट में रहता है, चाहे वो कितना भी बड़ा हो जाए. क्यों? क्योंकि उसको उस तरीके से नर्चर किया जाता है. तो देयर इज अ फ्री चाइल्ड एंड देयर इज एन अडेप्टिव चाइल्ड. इफ यू हैव बीन if you have had very dominating parents और उन्होंने आपको कुछ नहीं करने दिया, वो क्रिटिकल भी थे, डोमिनेटिंग भी थे, और उन्होंने आपको अपनी तरीके से पाला, तो कभी कभी क्या होता है कि आपकी अपनी पर्सनालिटी ग्रो नहीं कर पाती और आप एक अडेप्टिव चाइल्ड बन जाते हैं, जो दूसरा जो आपको बताएगा आप उसके हिसाब से काम कर लोगे. किसी ने आपको जितना चलाया आप उसके हिसाब से चले. तो नाउ दिस चाइल्ड इज वेरी अडेप्टिव, who follows all rules and regulations and tries to please the other people around themselves. Now there is another child who is a free child, who's more spontaneous, who's more uh, creative, who's ready to rebel and live in the moment. Now these are the two. If you have a critical parent, you generally turn out, if you have this child, what do you say, ego state. So अगर क्रिटिकल पेरेंट्स के बच्चे होते हैं, उनकी ज्यादातर अडेप्टिव चाइल्ड वाली ईगो स्टेट होती है या क्रिटिकल पेरेंट वाली. और जो नर्चरिंग पेरेंट्स होते हैं, जिनके नर्चरिंग पेरेंट्स होते हैं, वो ज्यादातर या तो नर्चरिंग पेरेंट मोड में रहेंगे या फ्री चाइल्ड मोड में रहेंगे. Now whenever you're talking about adult ego state, now adult ego state is what? The ego. If you draw a parallel between superego, ego, and id, who's the mediator? The mediator is the ego. Now, this adult is the ego. और क्या preferred ego state होती है? Whenever you are talking about the most preferred ego state, adult is the most preferred ego state. Why? Because this is the most practical ego state. The person is, an observer. He is more practical, more pragmatic, more logical, more rational than the parent and the child. So it is mostly said that whenever you are talking in your organizations, whenever you want to, excel in the organizational settings, adult is the most preferred ego state. Now again, I will take some time. You might get to break the monotony and to give you an insight into what is the functioning of different ego states. I will just switch on a movie. I believe everybody understands Hindi. There is a short film which will break the monotony of this transaction which is taking place for a long time and will give you an insight into the different ego states in a very fascinating and interesting manner. How do I share? Can you see it? Is it visible?
3 दिन से इस घर में 3 ही बजे। एक घर है कि कबाड़ी खाना। बेच क्यों नहीं देते हो इसे?
घड़ी चाहिए ना तुमको? रुको रुको। अरे
5 रुपए बचाने के चक्कर में कर दिया ना 500 का नुकसान।
तुम ही तो घड़ी के पीछे पड़ी हुई थी।
अच्छा अब नीचे उतर जाओ, नहीं तो हॉस्पिटल में 5000 का नुकसान हो जाएगा।
तुम हमेशा मेरे पैसों के पीछे क्यों पड़ी होती हो? खड़ूस। और ऐसे नहीं इतना बड़ा घर चला रहा हूं मैं।
हाँ, इतने सालों से रेलवे में सर्विस करके इस घर की एक एक ईंट अपने खून पसीने से जोड़ी है।
मजाक उड़ा रही हो?
अच्छा अब नीचे उतर जाओ।
यार बार ऑर्डर क्यों चेंज कर देती हो?
कौन सा ऑर्डर है इस घर में?
रहने दो, मेरा मूड खराब कर दिया तुमने।
अच्छा तुम्हारा मूड फिक्स करती हूँ मैं। क्या था वो गाना? क्या? हाँ सर ने सिखाया था। वो क्या था? आजा सनम तुझे ले चलूं मैं नदिया के पार।
बहुत बेसुरा गाती हो। प्लीज
प्लीज, मुझे बहुत अच्छा आता है और सर मेरी इतनी तारीफ करते थे कि तुम
तुम्हारे सर भी बेसुरे थे।
तुम्हें ही आता है बस गाना गाना। क्या हाल करके रखा है।
हाय हाय।
हाय। आज संडे है क्या?
ये मेरे नानू का घर है, मैं कभी भी आऊंगा। नानू मैंने आपको कितना फोन किया। नानू आज आपने शेव किया। ये कौन है?
ये मेरी दोस्त है रेखा।
ये क्या स्मेल है?
तुम्हारी खीर।
अरे बाप रे।
नमन, फोन नहीं चल रहा।
फिर से? आप जानते हो मुझे? कैसे?
आप खेलोगे मेरे साथ?
रोज सोचता हूँ आज दूध नहीं बाहर गिरने दूंगा। कपड़ा धो जरा जल्दी से।
मम्मी को पता है
कि मैं खीर बना रहा हूँ?
नहीं कि वो आपकी फ्रेंड है।
क्यों?
तुम खेलते हो ये गेम?
नहीं, नानू तो खेलते ही नहीं है।
तुम्हारे नानू ना बोरिंग है।
आप नानू के दोस्त कैसे बने?
नानू और मैं एक साथ एक ही ऑफिस में काम करते थे। चलो।
आप मेरी फेवरेट चीज़ उनके लिए बना रहे हो? आप नानी को रिप्लेस करने वाले हो?
क्या बोला? कुछ भी बोलते हो तुम लोग जो मन में आता है। दीदी को देख रहा।
ठीक है नानू।
कुछ नहीं, उसने मुझसे पूछा कि तुम मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड हो, बस।
और तुमने कुछ भी नहीं कहा
ना।
तुझे पता है वो जो आंटी है ना, वो नानू की गर्लफ्रेंड है। तुझे कैसे पता? मुझे पता है, और उन्होंने मम्मी को भी नहीं बताया। तूने बॉयफ्रेंड के बारे में क्यों नहीं बताया? शट अप, आदित्य मेरा बॉयफ्रेंड नहीं है। मैंने कब बोला आदित्य? तू जा यार। ठीक है, मुझे अपना गेम फिनिश करना है। हाँ
जाओ नैना से बात करो।
चलो चलो गेम फिनिश करते हैं।
चलो आ जाओ।
नमन ने तो पूरी खाली होगी अब तक।
और आपकी गर्लफ्रेंड ने भी।
अच्छा, तुमसे किसने कहा कि वो मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड है? हाँ?
अगर वो आपकी गर्लफ्रेंड नहीं है तो आपने आज खीर क्यों बनाई?
एक सीक्रेट बताऊं?
एक और सीक्रेट?
ये तो मैं रोज बनाता हूँ, लेकिन आज बेस्ट बनी है।
तो आप वो नांटी के लिए नहीं बनाते?
नहीं।
अभी आप ही खाते रहोगे कि मुझे भी टेस्ट कराओगे?
सॉरी सॉरी। कैसी है?
नॉट बैड।
और मम्मी को मत बताना, नहीं तो फिर प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो जाएगी।
ठीक है। अच्छा एक बात बताओ, आप उन आंटी को पसंद करते हो ना?
तुम मुझे आदित्य के बारे में बताओ, फिर मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ।
आपको किसने बताया?
मुझे सब पता है बेटा, सब पता है।
पहले आप बताओ, आप उन आंटी को पसंद करते हो ना?
आवाज सुनी उसकी? नमन से भी ज्यादा बेसुरी है।
I'm unable to again get, the slides. I'm
Uh,
unable to share the presentation.
okay, I'll add it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, once you have watched this film, do you get an insight into the three ego states? Can anybody tell me who was in the majority of times, who was in the adult ego state most of the times? If you analyze these characters, इन सब कैरेक्टर्स में अडल्ट ईगो स्टेट में सबसे ज्यादा कौन सा कैरेक्टर था? Isn't it easy to understand? The youngest child in the film was in most of the times in the adult ego state. He was talking the most pragmatic things, he was talking the most practical things, and he was behaving in the most adult way with all the characters in the film. So, see, this is the way the ego states function and how these ego states affect our transactions. We move to the next slide. Okay, we move to the transactions. So, if you talk about the parent ego state, these ego states are thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and behavioral patterns based on messages or lessons which we have learned from parents or other authorities, other parent sort of authorities who was, who have raised us. So they generally talk about should or should nots, ought or ought nots, always or never. सो जो हमारे प्रिजुडिशियल व्यूज होते हैं वो भी ज्यादातर, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट रिलीजन, यू टॉक अबाउट ट्रेडिशंस, पेरेंटल ईगो स्टेट से ही हम बात करते हैं. सो नर्चरिंग व्यूज आर ऑल्सो बाय द पेरेंट्स, दैट इज sympathetic and caring views, and critical views are also from the critical parent mode. But if you talk about the adult ego state, these ego states reflect the thoughts, feelings, attitudes, behavioral patterns based on the objective analysis of information and data. And we make decisions based on logic, computations, probabilities, and not based on emotions. If you talk about the child ego state, we talk about feelings, attitudes, behavioral patterns based on childlike emotions, impulses, feelings we have experienced. So, whenever you talk about, uh, you talk in a impulsive way, you talk in a pleasure seeking way, eager to please. Now, what was Anupam Kher doing with the girl? He was trying to please the girl by telling her ki no, he does not make kheer for the lady. He makes kheer every day. And this transaction with the girl, solved so many problems, and she became happy because she felt no, this lady is not so important. And uh, again, they start talking about, he starts talking about Aditya. Now, when he starts talking about Aditya with the girl, they became adults. He talked about the female he likes, and the granddaughter talks about the boy he likes. Now, then they come back to the adult ego state, and they started, transacting with each other from an adult perspective. See how these states switch, and how these ego states, when you transact, can actually be very, very um, fruitful when you are transacting in your personal and professional lives. So people may have a preferred ego state. You can see some people operate mostly from the parent ego state, some people transact from the adult ego state, and some people are mostly in their child ego state. Now you can think of your ego state after this presentation and see how you interact with others, and what is your preferred ego state, and how you can change your ego state based on the demands of the situation and based on the demands of the other person you are interacting with. So, a transaction is any interaction or communication between two people. People send and receive messages out of their ego states and into the ego states of the other person. How you say something and what others hear, just as important as what is said. तो आप कैसे बोलते हैं और दूसरा उसको कैसे सुनता है, ये उतना ही इम्पोर्टेंट है जितना आप क्या बोल रहे हैं वो इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो कम्युनिकेशन में ट्रांजैक्शनल एनालिसिस के हिसाब से 3 तरीके के ट्रांजैक्शंस होते हैं: कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री ट्रांजैक्शंस, क्रॉस ट्रांजैक्शंस एंड अल्टीरियर ट्रांजैक्शंस. नाउ आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री ट्रांजैक्शंस वो ट्रांजैक्शंस होते हैं जब आप एक ईगो स्टेट से दूसरी ईगो स्टेट में बात करते हैं और आपको जवाब ऐसी ईगो स्टेट से मिलता है जो उसकी कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री हो. नाउ इफ गो बैक टू द फिल्म एंड थिंक अबाउट हाउ ही सेड कि आई मेक खीर एवरी डे. द गर्ल आस्क्ड, so you are not making kheer for the auntie? He said, no, I make kheer every day. And then they start talking about the boy the girl likes, and they start talking about how they will hide the things because she also wants to keep her secret from the mother, and the grandfather also wants to keep the secret from the daughter. Now these two adults are interacting and responding, and the actions are regarded as appropriate and expected from the other person. Now see, if somebody is asking what is the time, so you tell the time just like it is 11:15, or you're telling me now it's 12:04. So there, whenever there is a complementary transaction, now this can be from a parent ego state to a child ego state. For example, I may ask you to give me a reply. Then I may speak from an authoritarian parent mode, and when I ask you to give me a reply about how you understood transactional analysis, you might respond from the child ego state and give me a reply like a child. Now I'm speaking from the position of authority, and you are speaking from the position of a child who's accepting that authority. But if I am speaking to you from a different ego state, see, now if I said you are late again, and the child says, no, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. So I'm speaking from the parent mode, and the other person is replying from the child mode. So there will be no crossed transaction, there will be complementary transactions. Now, what are cross transactions? क्रॉस ट्रांजैक्शंस वो होते हैं जो आपकी ग्रोथ में बाधा बन सकते हैं. अगर जनरली आपके साथ ये होता है कि आप लोगों से ट्रांजैक्ट करते हैं और आपके ट्रांजैक्शंस फेल हो जाते हैं, तब आपको सोचने की जरूरत है कि क्या आप आप कौन सी ईगो स्टेट से लोगों को रिप्लाई करते हैं कि जनरली आपकी लोगों से लड़ाई हो जाती है या आपकी लोगों से बहस हो जाती है. So it is not good to have cross transactions every now and then in your personal and professional life. If you're talking about your friends, you're talking about your spouse, you're talking about your bosses, it is not good to have cross transactions all the time. So, interactions, responses, actions not regarded as appropriate or expected from the other person. Cross transaction arrows will, cross each other. Now, I'll give you, not this is not the time. What is the time? So the other person is answering, there is a clock on the wall. Why don't you figure it out yourself? Now, the person is asking from the parent mode कि भाई टाइम क्या हो रहा है बता दो. दूसरा कह रहा है अपने आप घड़ी देख लो. तो यहाँ पे क्या हो गया? क्रॉस हो गया. और क्रॉस हुआ and this transaction failed. Now, I'll give you an example which has happened with me, which I often give in my workshops. I am bothered about the well being of my students as much as about their academics. So, I saw a girl who was wearing a Lucknowi kurta in January without uh, any stole, any shawl, any, woolen cloth. सो आई आस्क्ड हर कि बेटा तुम ऐसे क्यों आई हो उस क्लास में, तुमने कोई गर्म कपड़ा नहीं पहन रखा. नाउ आई वाज स्पीकिंग फ्रॉम माय पेरेंट मोड एंड द रिप्लाई आई गॉट वाज फ्रॉम अ वेरी adult mode. She said ki ma'am, you are here to teach and not tell me what to wear and what not to wear. So see, this was a cross transaction which was very hurtful to me. So there are times when people cross the transactions. So it was from a very adult mode. So generally when you are transacting with others, you have to realize from which mode they are transacting and how to reply. So we move to ulterior transactions. ये transactions मुझे बहुत बाद में जाके समझ में आए और तब समझ में आए जब एक्चुअली आपके साथ हो जाता है. Somebody might, these are the responses which people give from a very different state, but they mean something very different. For example, I was not aware that when people ask you out for a coffee is asking for a date. So if somebody is asking for a coffee, I generally felt that they are asking for a cup of coffee. And you are thinking from a parent to child interaction, but it might be a very adult to adult transaction. So ulterior transactions, आज आप बहुत अच्छी लग रही हो. So you are taking it as a compliment, but it is coming to you as something very different. मतलब आप कह कुछ रहे हैं और आप मीन कुछ और कर रहे हैं, तो उन ट्रांजैक्शंस को हम अल्टीरियर ट्रांजैक्शंस कहते हैं और वो ट्रांजैक्शंस बहुत ज्यादा हार्मफुल और बहुत ज्यादा खराब होते हैं. सो whenever you are now, how do I talk about the implications of TA? अब आप कैसे लोगों के साथ ट्रांजैक्ट करते हैं, आप कौन सी ईगो स्टेट से ट्रांजैक्ट करते हैं, वो बताएगा कि आपकी डीलिंग्स लोगों के साथ कितनी इफेक्टिव है, आप कितना खुद को समझते हैं, कितना दूसरे को समझते हैं. So when you are talking about transactional analysis, it gives you a lot of understanding into your own self and others. It reduces stress, frustration, and anxiety. Now, if I know that this person is always in the child mode, it might be your teacher, it might be your boss. You identify that this person is always in the child mode. And what does it might be your spouse, it might be your girlfriend. अगर right? So if you realize that this person is mostly speaking from the child mode, then how do you change your transactions from adult to child? You have to understand कि इसको nurturing चाहिए, इसको adult to adult transactions नहीं चाहिए, इसको nurturing चाहिए. तो you switch your mode from adult mode to the parent mode. Now another person you are dealing with is always in a very adult mode, does not want you to nurture, does not want you to have fun. Now this person you have to deal with, so you switch from your parent mode to the adult mode and talk to this person from a very adult perspective. Now how the other person wants you to interact, if you can switch your ego states based on the person you are dealing with, it can actually help you attain a lot, and it is not a big deal. If you are failing in some relationships, if you are actually failing in your personal or professional relationships, you can try to I'm not saying that a very toxic person can change, but you can obviously try to make more um, positive transactions than more cross transactions with that person. So I'll not talk about strokes, are mainly the positive interactions, the pat on the back which you give to the other person. So it can be a verbal, it can be a compliment, it can be a touch, it can be a gift, it can be just listening. तो स्ट्रोक्स की बात आज मैं ज्यादा डिटेल में नहीं करूंगी, क्योंकि स्ट्रोक्स में अब जब आप एक्टिविटी करते हो तब आपको ज्यादा अंडरस्टैंड करते हो कि व्हाट आर strokes. So whenever you are dealing with difficult people, so you have to keep your adult ego state in control of yourself. Don't get defensive, argumentative, or emotional when you are dealing with difficult people. Don't take all interactions personally. ये हम लोग बहुत जो इमोशनल लोग होते हैं वो ज्यादातर दूसरे, क्योंकि वो पेरेंट मोड में या चाइल्ड मोड में रहते हैं, तो वो एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि द अदर पर्सन विल टेक केयर. बट व्हेनेवर यू आर इन योर प्रोफेशनल सेटिंग्स, you have to understand whether your ego state will be taken care of, or do you need to keep your interactions very impersonal. So move cautiously, stay cool, remember complimentary transactions and strokes while dealing with other people. But absolutely, there is no need to take continuous abuse. So these are the references. Farah ma'am, do we have the time to talk about the 4 life positions? Because that is very important, but it might take 10 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
Okay, thank you so
Indeed.
much. So, another important aspect of transactional analysis is something which you will actually see when you are dealing with most people. These are the 4 life positions. Sorry. जनरली जब हमारे साथ जब हम छोटे होते हैं तो हमारे साथ कैसे डील किया जाता है, कैसे हमने अपना पास्ट बिताया है, वो आपकी लाइफ को बहुत लंबे समय तक अफेक्ट करता है. और अब अगर आप साइको एनालिसिस की बात करें तो साइको एनालिसिस में फ्रॉइड ने क्या कहा? He talked about the importance of childhood, and that is the basic limitation of psychoanalysis, that they limit themselves and they feel that whatever has happened in the past cannot be undone. This is the reason why psychoanalysis became obsolete and people started talking about humanistic approach, because humans are not the slaves of the past. They can obviously take charge of their lives the moment they want to. So, these are the four life positions which we take based on how we have been dealt with in the past. But obviously, you can see these four life positions. Which is the best life position is I am okay and you are okay. Whenever you are dealing with people, and whenever you are dealing with people in the way, if you have been nurtured by parents who have told you that you are the best and you can do whatever you can achieve, you can do whatever you want to do in life, then you generally have this position for yourself and for others, that you are good and the world is good. You are fair and others are fair. So, this is the most desired position according to transactional analysis. Now, this I am not okay, you are okay. अब जैसे आपके पेरेंट्स बहुत सक्सेसफुल थे, दोनों बहुत अच्छी अच्छी पोजीशंस पे थे, उनके पास आपके लिए कभी टाइम नहीं रहा। अब पेरेंट्स ने बहुत अचीव किया और उन्होंने बचपन में बच्चे को जब भी पेरेंट टीचर मीटिंग में गए, वैसे तो उसको इमोशनली कभी टाइम नहीं दिया, बट वेन एवर दे केम आउट ऑफ द पेरेंट टीचर मीटिंग, दे आर ऑलवेज टेलिंग कि अरे तुम क्या कर रहे हो, हमें देखो, अपने कजिन्स को देखो, हाउ वेल दे हैव डन इन देयर लाइव्स। तो वो बच्चे के मन में घर कर जाता है और वो सोचता है कि everybody else is okay but I am not okay. This is one down position. जब आप ये बिलीव करने लगते हो कि सब बेहतर हैं और मैं किसी काबिल नहीं हूं, तो this is known as one down position, and this is a position of inferiority. So this is position we have to change. Now we can take charge of our lives. We don't have to, let these comments of anybody in our life affect us throughout the life. Now you have become an adult. You can take charge. You can understand your, you have to analyze your strengths, and based on that strength, you have to move from this position of I'm not okay and the rest are okay to I am okay and you are okay. So अगर आपको इस लाइफ पोजीशन से आई एम ओके यू आर ओके की तरफ जाना है, तो आपको अपने स्ट्रेंथ्स पे फोकस करना होगा, आपको अपनी सेल्फ एस्टीम पे काम करना होगा, तभी आप आई एम ओके यू आर ओके की पोजीशन में पहुंचेंगे और अपने पास्ट के स्लेव नहीं रहेंगे, एक बेहतर फ्यूचर के लिए वर्क करेंगे। और अगर आप इतने ज्यादा सेल्फ क्रिटिकल रहेंगे, तो अगर आप कुछ अचीव भी करने लायक होंगे तो भी आप अचीव नहीं कर पाएंगे। आई एम नॉट ओके, यू आर नॉट ओके, दिस इज नाउ द वर्स्ट लाइफ पोजिशन। दिस इज द पोजिशन ऑफ acute डिप्रेशन एंड हेल्पलेसनेस। अगर किसी को ये लगता है कि ना हम सही हैं, ना कोई सही है, ना दुनिया सही है, तो इससे खराब पोजीशन कोई नहीं हो सकती। यू लूज ऑल योर इंटरेस्ट इन योर सेल्फ, यू लूज ऑल योर इंटरेस्ट इन पीपल अराउंड यू, एंड you are always criticizing life and you see absolutely no hope. So this is a very hopeless position, and you have to understand, if you have this viewpoint, then actually sometimes you will need help of a counselor or a psychologist or somebody who is in a position of authority to guide you. Please take guidance if you have this life position most of the time, that I am not okay and you are not okay. Then now we come to the fourth position, that is I am okay and you are not okay. Now this is the position of superiority complex. आपके पेरेंट्स के पास बहुत पैसा है, they have a huge company, and you are going to be the CEO of the company, and now all your friends are looking for jobs, and you have something which is served on the platter. Now you start believing that it is something which you have achieved, because your parents have told you every now and then कि जो कुछ हमारा है वो तुम्हारा ही तो है, और तुम ही राजकुमार हो, और तुम ही हमारे राजा बच्चा हो, राजा बाबू हो. And you start taking that the world will take you in that way, and you start treating people as dirt. So now again, this is a very uh, undesirable life position. So you will not be able to respect the people around you. You'll not be able to respect the efforts of people around you if you are most of the time in the mode that I am okay, but you are not okay. So again, this position is highly undesirable. When you are in this life position, your transactions will also reflect I am okay and you are not okay. And if you continuously make other people around you feel inferior, then your relationships are going to fail. And this is not, even if life has served everything you on the platter, you are not going to be successful. So these are the 4 life positions. I'm okay, you are okay. People occupying this position will be collaborative and accepting of themselves and others. I'm okay, you are not okay. This position is occupied by those who project their difficulties onto others. They may be blaming and critical. I am not okay, you are okay. This position is depressive. It is characterized by feeling powerless and lacking in comparison with others. I am not okay, you are not okay is the position of hopelessness, futility, and frustration. Now, this is, I think, all about TA, which we can talk about in this limited time. So, I would like you from now onwards, whenever you are transacting with somebody and whenever you are meeting people with whom you fail most of the time, then I would ask you to, think about the position, the ego state from which you are transacting with others, and think about the life position from which you are transacting with the others most of the time. This will actually help you improve your personal and professional relationships to the great extent. But first thing is to self analyze, to become self aware, to have a high self esteem, and treat others with equal respect. So I believe that from now onwards, you can have this position of I am okay and you are okay in most of your personal and professional settings. Thank you.
Well, that was a wonderful lecture, and I'm sure our student must have learned a lot. Uh, any comments? Any question? Students, do you have any question? Any comment? You can ask. And ma'am, it was really very interesting. And the transactional analysis, I really didn't know about transactional analysis and the 4 position. And it was very difficult for me to understand what is transactional analysis. But you made it so simple and so like easier that today I have understood what transactional analysis is. The parent ego and the child ego and the adult ego. It was very clear, and the clip was also an additional help to understand what is transactional analysis. That was very like बहुत ही अच्छा presentation था मैम, बहुत मतलब you presented very well. That was very easy to understand actually में बहुत अच्छे अच्छे examples थे आपके, and yes, it was like relatable also. We can implement TA like transactional analysis in our day to day life. और हमारे जो कन्वर्सेशन होते हैं वो एक्चुअली में इसी तरह के होते हैं मैम, और ज्यादातर अगर हम लोग देखें तो वी हैव टू लर्न कि हमें कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री कैसे सीखना है वो चीज को. है ना, मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम होता है कि
There is
हमारा
there was another clip of 2-3 minutes which I had used in another workshop, but because we were falling short of time, so I did not use that clip. That is another clip which is very interesting. So if you have time, we can take 2 more minutes to watch that clip.
Actually, I think students have left. Otherwise, I
Okay.
could have played. But ma'am, you can send the slides and the
It
video
is not
clips.
the
I will
slide.
be.
This is just a clip. I will send it to you.
You can show, ma'am. You can show later on. Students will see because it's
Okay.
on our YouTube channel, so they will see it.
So I can show it right now.
Yes, ma'am. You can show.
Okay. Let me see. Let me find it out. Just give me 2 minutes.
Arijita is saying, thank you, ma'am, for sharing all this information about transactional analysis and your valuable knowledge.
Thank you so much. I'll just share.
आप लोगों को डियर स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो आप लोगों ने ट्रांजैक्शनल एनालिसिस आज सीखी है, ये सिर्फ एकेडमिक्स में ही नहीं, आपके प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में भी बहुत आपके लिए हेल्पफुल होगी। वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थ्योरी, और ये आपको आगे पढ़नी भी होंगी। दोज हु आर इन ग्रेजुएशन दे विल लर्न इन पीजी आई गेस, और आपका आगे भी बहुत सारी जगह पर आपको ये पढ़ना होगा फॉर योर एकेडमिक पर्पस, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकल आपकी लाइफ में भी तो ये इम्प्लीमेंट होगी ही होगी, तो उसके लिए आपकी ये बहुत फ्रूटफुल है। Ma'am is going to show another clip. I hope this will also help you to understand about the transactional analysis.
Farah ma'am, can you see it? But I
Uh,
cannot. Learning
um,
the fun with the third clip.
I cannot see. There is one
Okay.
presentation, and then yes, now it is visible.
क्या कर क्या रहे थे तुम दोनों उस खराब लिफ्ट में, हैं?
पर वो लिफ्ट खराब नहीं डैडी, बोबो से थोड़ा इंसान था।
अच्छा, कैसे?
सारे बटन्स एक साथ दबाकर लिफ्ट जोर से कांपी, धड़ 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 धड़, और फिर बोबो भैया उस लिफ्ट को जानू में लेके गए।
क्या? कहाँ लेके गया?
मिश्रा चिकन का पीस दूं? थैंक यू।
कहाँ लेके गया बच्चे?
जानू डैड, नरक, हेल।
अच्छा, कहाँ है ये नर्क?
ग्राउंड फ्लोर के नीचे। हर बिल्डिंग का अपना हेल होता है। बिल्डिंग के सारे गंदे लोग मरने के बाद उधर ही बंद हो जाते हैं। सोने वाले वॉचमैन, खेलने से रोकने वाले खड़ूस बुड्ढे, सोसाइटी के सेक्रेटरी और कंदी वाली स्टेप मॉम।
वो क्या? बंद करो ये मैजिक शैजिक, सुन नहीं रहे आप?
आपके लिए गिफ्ट आया है, एक गिफ्ट दूसरे
बोबो
लोग
सुना
से,
नहीं?
दूसरे
बोबो,
लोग से।
मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? बोबो स्टॉप बोल दे। क्या?
मॉम फेवरेट फ्लावर। सी डैडी, बोबो कुछ भी कर सकता है, कुछ भी।
तुम दोनों को कैसे हैंडल करना है मेरी समझ में नहीं आ रहा। मेरे पास बस एक ही इलाज है कि तुम
बोर्डिंग स्कूल। हम तुम्हारी मन की व्यथा से भली भांति परिचित है बच्चा।
हम तुम्हारे मन की व्यथा बताते हैं। हम बताते हैं तुम्हारे मन की व्यथा।
Thank you for thank you for giving me the extra time.
Thank you, ma'am. That video was also again a very useful, and I wish कि आप ये हमें भी भेज दें so that we can also use this in our lecture. ये वाला तो next वाला जो आपका वीडियो था ये बहुत ही अच्छा था, बहुत एक तरह से strategy भी थी इसमें that how can we implement our transactional analysis or how can we communicate ना, ताकि जो complementary हो जाए, जो clashes हो रहे थे वो सही से वो
From
convey
cause
हो
to
जाए message.
complementary, yeah.
यस मैम, तो दैट वाज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एंड बहुत ही यूजफुल था ये वाला भी वीडियो मैम, एंड आई होप आवर स्टूडेंट्स हैव आल्सो लर्नड लॉट. और थैंक यू सो मच शिवाली मैम फॉर presenting your knowledge and sharing your knowledge with us, and it was really a great experience, and I hope you also enjoyed with us. Our audience
I'm
enjoyed.
humbled. Thank you.
Yes
Thank
ma'am.
you for giving me the opportunity. It's a
Okay.
pleasure.
Thank
I would like to meet the students in person next time.
Yes, ma'am. Next time I'll try to arrange a workshop or kind of workshop on TA or another session on self esteem and something. तो उस पर हम लोग ऑफलाइन भी अरेंज करने की कोशिश करेंगे मैम. ओके.
Definitely. That would be more fruitful. Thank you.
ओके.
May I
थैंक यू
take
मैम.
your leave?
ओके. बाय. यस मैम.
Thank
ओके.
you.
थैंक यू मैम.
How do
थैंक यू
you?
सो मच.
Okay.
There's an option leave studio. Yes. Okay. Thank you, students. Bye, everyone.